U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Franchise. It's important to understand that the ensuing anger isn't just about that movie. And it's not just about Tilda Swinton playing a Tibetan character in Marvel's Doctor Strange, or Emma Stone claiming to be part Chinese and Hawaiian in Aloha.
My dad was half Chinese and half Hawaiian, and my mother's Swedish.
It's how all these casting decisions combined, dating back to the earliest days of Hollywood, have made Asians invisible at best.
Yes.
And at worst,
the point of the literal point of
That's
the
why fans
movie.
notice.
The literal point of the movie, if you watched it, is to say that it's not that Major isn't Asian, it's that she didn't have to be. That's literally the point they're driving home with the movie. They literally spell it out to you when she says, "My identity was stolen from me."
Yeah. I mean, not to mention that the adaptation ends with you finding out that they literally just, because what I get confused between the live action and the animated one, because she goes to the old lady, which is the mother of the girl who went missing, which was her,
who was
right?
Motoko. Her name.
Yeah.
That's when she finds out her name is Motoko in the movie.
And that's the connection to the source. So they've just given a different backstory to the same character, I guess. But it's more like, yes, this character was Japanese, but the identity was stolen. That's like, as John said, that was the entire point.
The literal villain of the movie is an American corporation.
Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
And like the creator of Ghost of the Shell talks about how Major is not even human. She's like an essence and an entity, right? And how this was Major, right? Like they captured the essence and entity of the spirit of the character in the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
When the characters from the Last Airbender cartoon become much lighter skinned for the live action movie. And when John Rico goes from being Filipino in the novel Starship Troopers to being played by someone named Casper Van Dien.
I want to try it again, but this time we need you to do an accent.
The fact is, things aren't getting better fast enough for Asians in
Starship
Hollywood.
Troopers is your source when they specifically were making it look like a white fascist ethno-state type shit. Like that's kind of the point of the movie.
That's
like
weird.
Out of all the movies to draw from, this is why I fucking hated this period so much.
It's so bad.
Movies literally, not to be the quartering, but movies have sucked ever since this shit happened.
They honestly have. I call it a resurgence of a Hays Code era, but feel free to disagree. I think it's just another religious sort of fanaticism trying to control media. I mean, look at Dominions, right? The Dominion theology. Maybe I was right.
In 1944, Aline McMahon was nominated for an Oscar for her yellow-faced role in Dragon Seed.
Wow.
Later on, Linda Hunt would win an
1940s,
Oscar for playing a Chinese man in The Year of Living Dangerously.
Right. Billy Kwan.
That was 1982, almost 40 years later. Basically, everything else in the country had changed, except white people being cast as Asians. For a solid 2 decades, the Chinese detective character Charlie Chan was played by white men in makeup. But that was the 30s and 40s, right? Well, here's Jim Sturgis and Hugo Weaving reincarnated as Koreans for parts of Cloud Atlas.
Who are you?
Everyone remembers Mickey Rooney's infamous 1961
Jesus.
performance in Breakfast at Tiffany's as just fully unacceptable and racist, right?
Mr. Go right
Well,
That's
24
fucking
years later,
crazy.
Joel Grey delivered this Korean caricature in Remo Williams.
I think I can do something with him.
And another 2 decades later, here's Rob Schneider in I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry.
Now the lings are a symbol of eternity.
Schneider is a quarter Filipino, so progress?
He gets a pass. That character's fucking phenomenal. Fuck you.
Or how about Peter Sellers' 1968 role as a clueless Indian man at a dinner party?
You really crushed my old Indian hand.
A full 20 years later, Fisher Stevens was in brownface for Short Circuit 2.
It's not possible. We are the type of people who have every...
And another 24 years after that,
Let's talk about the Love Guru.
2.
It's not possible. We are the type of people who have every.
And another 24 years after that, Ashton Kutcher is doing this in a Pop Chips commercial.
I'm Raj. I'm a Bollywood producer. I'm looking for the most delicious
I
thing on the
remember
planet.
this one.
Arguably worse than white people playing Asian characters is white people playing real-life Asian humans, which is what happened to Cora Lijek in Argo.
What?
And to Jeffrey Ma, who appeared in the movie 21 as this character, even though in real life he was this guy.
Ben Campbell was the most gifted student at MIT.
It's not surprising that directors want to hire big names to attract producers and funding, but when they want to do stories about Asians and won't cast Asian actors, they should know that
Ghost in the Shell is not about Asian characters.
I'm trying to even remember.
Bato is American. I'm pretty sure there's two Japanese characters.
No, I'm trying to
the
remember what the
group.
because I have to look up the actual cast of characters because I can't even find an image of this one character that they switched in Ghost in the Shell.
Yes, yeah.
that the blowback against that has been building for the better part of a century.
Sakini by name.
Don't be going using fucking the live action Dragon Ball movie. That was a travesty. Not a single person I've spoken to likes that movie.
Against that has been building for the better part of a century.
Sakini by name. Interpreter
Also, Goku's a Saiyan. Fucking idiots.
by profession.
He's literally little monkey boy. What are you talking about? He can be literally cast as anybody if you fucking want. Make Goku black. Who gives a shit?
One of the early examples of a white cast playing Asian characters was The Good Earth in 1937, based on the hugely popular novel by Pearl S. Buck.
Like, I generally agree with this video, but like, dumb. Like, yes, we get it, but also,
What does this have to do with fucking Ghost in the Shell, though?
exactly. Like, it's not an example that should be used for Ghost in the Shell because it's not. Do we want the philosophy? No.
Hang on. I think we've already done that video and released it.
I have complicated
this definitely
feelings
isn't.
about Ghost in the Shell, the new live-action remake. I mean, my feelings about the original film are very uncomplicated.
Can't wait to hear.
I love it unconditionally. It's a great movie. But the remake, on the one hand, it's an ambitious, technically impressive cyberpunk thriller, which is something that I really want to see more of from Hollywood. On the other, it's dumb as a sack of fucking bricks, and it's basically an insult to the original movie. But before I get into that, let's take a step back and talk.
If you actually knew the source material, it actually draws from a lot of the show and the movie and combines it, but still actually surprisingly retains the general theme of the show and movie, which is identity and basically identity crisis.
Bro.
Got it?
Oh my god, no, I just learned something new. And while looking up, because I couldn't remember what they switched the character to, right? So I found this great picture, right? And this is going to show the character's depictions in various media, right? So this major right here is specifically based on this one from 1995.
Can't
right?
see your mouse.
So the live action one compared to 1995. Okay. Now the two before that in the manga are generally accepted to be Japanese. But the whole point of the 1995 film is that she is like raceless, doesn't have an identity, that she's literally like a mannequin body. It's only her mind that makes her unique. She's supposed to be like baseline template, you know, just like the average android that you would get off the shelf.
Yeah,
and that's
right. Because there's duplicates of her.
That's why it drives her identity crisis. Yes, exactly. Then
she keeps seeing duplicates of herself. That's right. And that's when we get the bedroom scene that everybody fucking harps on. Because she's like contemplating her existence in the how small she is comparing to the world, right?
Yeah. Well, then
That's when you get
also,
the bedroom
one of the
scene.
episodes we saw in Standalone Complex, she's like, it's the lesbian episode where she goes over to like her
Yes.
girlfriend's house, but then like bails on her just to be on the laptop, right? So it's generally accepted that after the 1995 film, she basically goes into the computer world, right? She gets rid of her
Yes.
body entirely. So
Yeah.
the second film, she's not even in. She shows up. She possesses a doll that the villain is using, right? And it's a doll that's like a child doll that comes in, and she talks to Bato and then leaves.
Yeah.
Then Standalone Complex comes out, right? And it's generally accepted that she's retaken what she's found as her original form.
Mm.
But it's not just like enhanced, like that's like her body is like generally accepted. It's not necessarily who she was on creation, but it is like her body, and the shape that she chooses is like now accepted into her identity, and it's Japanese.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Then in Arise, which is
That's
supposed to be a
also- hold
sequel,
on.
she has blue round eyes and is clearly not Japanese in Arise, which is a prequel to Standalone Complex. Okay.
But hold on though, because in Standalone Complex, didn't we establish that it was just a body that she chooses, that she can be literally
'cause
anything?
She fucking says that, but it's like it's to distance herself from Bato. It's like when right before the Tachikoma sacrifice themselves, and she's talking about the watch on her wrist, right?
Yes.
So she's like coping. She's like, that's the thing is if you actually watch it and do a character analysis of Major, she's very complex and like distances people and pushes people away. Then we have Bato. Okay, never definitively been said because the backstory changes between the canons, right? Never definitively been said, but it's generally accepted he's U.S. Special Forces of Norwegian descent. Like, look at him. You know, he's always had the robot eyes, so you can't really tell, right? And who did they hire to play him? A Norwegian guy. Whoa, no way. Crazy, am I right? Togasa, who is from the Jap. By the way, Ghost in the Shell 1995 and the new one takes place in Hong Kong, not Japan. Okay.
True.
Togasa is a former cop. He's his family
from the city.
He's from Japan, right? His dad's a cop, his granddad's a cop. That's the whole point, is that he's the most human member of the team. He's a contingency plan, and that's what makes his character so interesting, is because like he's not cyberized. Like he has to use special things to like even get on the internet to talk to people. Okay. Then we got Ishikawa. As you can see in the comics, you know, this one clearly Japanese, right? But this guy they made black in the movie when he could have easily been Japanese. So is he blackwashed from Asian face there? Right? But like this is like the beard in here, like I think this is a really good one, like coming from, because he's basically the same design in
yes.
The fact that he changed in Innocence, the sequel, is weird though. But he's basically the same in all of these except Innocence. Okay. Boma, they have this bad picture with the eyes looking weird as fuck on this one. I don't remember exactly Boma in the movie because he's a background character. And then we'll get back to Pazu. Saito, okay, the sniper. Also a Japanese guy. Not only that, they picked the most famous Japanese actor to play the chief, and he doesn't even speak English in the movie. He speaks Japanese through the whole movie. All right.
And their cyber brains translate it for them. Like it's what do you like?
Like Hong Kong is like Singapore, where it's like, of course, there's like American investment in things there. You know, that's the whole point. Is like it's an anti-capitalist message in both of the movies, right? And then we have Pazu, where it's like, where's his live action depiction, right? So he wasn't in 1995. He was kind of generally accepted to be added in Standalone Complex, even though he is in the manga. But that's generally where he gets accepted from, is from the anime itself. Okay. So then I found this other thing where I found an article where it's basically just the stuff I just gave, right? So I didn't actually read if this is like a weird white supremacist blog or anything, you know. So character changed from Asian to Caucasian, although I have to say he looks exactly like the anime version, played by Danish actor. But that's the thing, is it's never established. He even talks about how he used to be in Special Forces. He doesn't say which one, but it's just a whole thing in Ghost in the Shell where he talks about it. It's in one of the like more filler episodes, right? He even says that. All right. But then we get to, oh, what's that? They completely gender swapped Pazu, and it's a Kurdish and Polish woman who plays her. She only has 2 scenes, basically a throwaway character. Like, what are we saying here? That Kurds are white? Ridiculous. Like, get the fuck out of here with this. Like the whole point of casting Major as white was a critique on the society at the time, and people were too fucking busy crying to actually look at what the movie was doing.
Yeah, this movie was way better than people actually gave it credit for. Like, slept on. Really slept on as an adaptation.
Talk about my perspective on the film going into its release.
The original Ghost in the Shell is an important film, and for once I'm not just speaking personally when I say that. The Matrix and Dark City would not exist without Mamoru Oshii's original vision of Neo Tokyo, and without them we wouldn't have, well, half of all modern action movies and all of modern cyberpunk film.
No, you're already way off. Ghost in the Shell is the reason why anime exists in the West. It was always created as a Western product. That was its point. That was the point of making that movie. That's why they put the fucking fan service tits in it to begin with. Was so when it was on American shelves in the video store, it would be picked up and rented, and people would have their minds blown by how good it was. The Matrix is literally created when the fucking the Wachowski sisters go in with a studio executive and just say, we want to make this but for real, and watch Ghost in the Shell with a studio executive. That was how the Matrix was created. That was the pitch meeting, watching Ghost in the Shell. Okay? Like, it is part of American culture, just like how the Statue of Liberty was built by France. Okay, it's not a fucking Japanese anime or anything like that. It's a bicultural product, and it always has been. It is the first movie released in theaters to 2 countries at the same time, and it cost the company a great deal of money because they made the American and Japanese versions of the original 1995 film alongside each other. That was nuts at the time. It cost them a lot of fucking money to do that. And everyone was telling them that this is a dumb idea. It's going to fail. And guess what? Ghost in the Shell did fail in Japan. The only reason Ghost in the Shell is a product today is because Americans went to see it in the theaters, and it actually was a cultural phenomenon here. Well, it was forgotten about in Japan. And if it wasn't for Adult Swim with Standalone Complex and Adult Swim bringing anime over, who knows how popular anime would still be to this day. How, like, you know, like anime is like a mainstream genre now. Like, would it even taken even longer if it wasn't for both of these products? Ghost in the Shell, the movie, and the show. You know, the show is still ahead of its time. I say to this day, I don't give a fuck about anime. I only watch Ghost in the Shell.
So Paramount's new remake isn't just another case of Hollywood taking something beloved within the anime community and potentially ruining it. It's a case of Hollywood remaking a vital part of the film canon. This film filled me with the same trepidation as the upcoming sequel to Blade Runner and the abysmal PG-13 remake.
Canon? What canon? Every Ghost in the Shell fucking breaks the canon of the previous one. That's the point. And like, it's more like Mad Max, you know? Mad Max, it's it's almost like it's a different character, you know? It's just a fill-in. What about James Bond? Where's the canon in that? Like, that's the point of Major. It's that she is this faceless thing. She's just a character to tell the story of this whole like capitalistic ecosystem and the surveillance ecosystem from governments and all this shit. That's the point.
Yeah, like the Standalone Complex season 1 to season 2, completely different.
Oh yeah, the music is completely different.
Completely different show, completely different storylines. Everything's different.
Yeah, the characters even look a little different.
Yeah, it's not the same. Like they're
different
individual
writers
stories.
and directors between the seasons, even too.
Yeah, like
There's only like
they're
a few that stay on between.
like there's no general direction. Like there's a general direction for the season, but that's about it. I wouldn't call it anthology because it's not episode to episode, but it kind of
but
breaks it up with
even in the first season, there's stuff that like contradicts each other. That's why
yeah.
You can't say that necessarily Bato, because like it implies that he fought in America, but he also somehow is like military background in Japan. It just depends on who was writing that episode.
Yeah, exactly.
RoboCop. That last point of comparison will become much more relevant as this
Oh my
video
God,
goes
why
on.
are we
This
comparing
remake
this movie
had
to
so
fucking
much to live up to,
RoboCop?
and given Hollywood's lack of respect for foreign films in general and animation
they
in
really,
particular,
honestly, it's just the last like 15 minutes that I think is boring.
Of this movie,
Like basically after the scene after Chief pulls the like briefcase gun and kills a bunch of people outside his car, then on, I think it's kind of dull because it wraps up and then she's like at the grave. Like it's just, I don't know. It just kind of, yeah. But I even think that even the original one, it kind of drags at the end.
But that's when you get so much context about her. The discussion with the mum is so good.
That part's good. But I'm just the graveyard is just. I think she should have been reshelled. Basically, she should have been in a new body at the graveyard.
Yes, yeah, I think we discussed.
They also should have like had a whole play on her dying. You know, just like how they do in that, like towards the end of the anime where she gets sniped in the head and does a cartwheel off the fucking plane when she gets shot so fucking hard.
There was little reason to believe that it would even come close. The original movie is smart and nuanced. It approaches transhumanism and the loss of self as not being inherently negative, and I had strong doubts that that spirit could carry over to a film made in America, a nation that fetishizes individualism.
Literally, the creator said that the spirit was there. Like, what are you crying about? They did such a good job with this. Like the special effects. The special effects in the original with the water fight when she's invisible is incredible. And they fucking really like just basically do that thing shot for shot in the remake that looks great. I love the city design in the remake.
Yes,
and all the stuff that they added in the remake that changed the story from the original is some of the best parts. When she brings the prostitute back to her room.
Yeah.
And they like expanded her room. It's bigger than it is in the 1995 version, right?
I mean that whole scene is so interesting. Like she's just sort of touching her and just being like, you know, they're talking to each other about. I think if I remember correctly,
she says, "What are you?"
Like what are you? Sort of like
because like in this storyline, she's like the first completely cybernetic human. She's like a prototype in this universe of Ghost in the Shell.
And like, I've seen criticisms where people say that it's dull, right? That the city is dull in this movie.
It's so capitalistic. It's so capitalistic.
Amazing. It's amazing. It looks so good.
Also,
like exactly
the Weta doing those Robo Geisha heads are fucking the Robo Geisha scene is so good. It's so much better than the Robo Geishas that come in standalone Complex.
Yeah.
And like I think, and really, after you watch the 1990 film and the first season of Standalone Complex, well, we haven't watched the whole second season yet, too. I also love, change because like I think the Puppet Master is kind of a lame villain in the original, but it's just the fact that it's like an AI. Well, sure, but he's like the villain of the case in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So like the fact that he's supposed to be an AI that gains sentience, right? Like that's cool and all. But there's not really a lot of diving into like that character, right? So like bringing in Kuze and like swapping him with elements of Puppet Master and Kuze from the second season was really interesting. And like when he's taking her face apart, and like talking about like how they perfected us, you were built from my mistakes type thing.
Yeah,
so
no,
don't take your medicine, But that whole scene where he's like, it's like, you kill people, and he's like, it was self-defense, defense of self.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like, is he not allowed to fight for his own existence because they sought to destroy him? Like, he was a human once before.
And the capitalist society just
Yeah,
decided
like so
that
whole
he's no
scene,
longer.
because Major always betrays the government by the end of the storylines.
Yes,
That's like one of the things that always happens in the stories. So like that whole scene where she gets the seed in her to start turning against it's the corporation that built her, not exactly the government with Henka Robotics, which is like that's the thing is the Henka, the American in the movie, is like kind of a cringe mustache twirly villain.
A little bit, yeah.
He's not. That's where you can criticize his Henka is not developed enough, and that's why I think the ending is boring. Is because it like solidifies on Henka being the villain in the movie, and it kind of gets a little lame there.
Yeah, they should have expanded on the identity stuff to set up for a sequel, if anything.
Yeah, that's why I think her just visiting her grave is not enough for the ending. Acknowledging that she was Japanese being whitewashed. The thing is that it would lock in somebody that they wouldn't have cast yet.
Yes, yeah. But even if they didn't, they wouldn't necessarily need to.
Yeah, I mean, they could potentially put her in makeup, like geisha makeup or something. Something that like, like covered her face, or they just like, maybe. You could like, the classic like long Japanese hair and it's like blowing in the wind, covering the actress's face at the end. So it's kind of like dives into that mystery.
Yeah.
Also, the idea to fucking do the promotion with Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode. Like Depeche Mode, the band that is like known for making the I want to kill myself emo era. Like we wouldn't even have emo music if it wasn't for Depeche Mode. So like even that, the Depeche Mode vibe, like being set as the background track, was also like really good. Like it like really helped market the like movie and the trailers. Like it was fucking the music in the trailer was composed perfectly. Also, is that a Radio Shack ad in the background? Do they exist anymore?
I think this is Hong Kong.
Radio Shack still
frequently rejects scientific progress.
See this, America? You see this? Look at this. I can pay for stuff by slapping my credit card on the machine. This is the future, America. Wake up, America.
Sir, the card has been declined.
Oh, guess I got to make more SAO videos.
That poor gas station
And then
attendant
there was a whole
used drug into your video and told them to say a line.
Washing issue, which I have complicated feelings about as well.
It's not.
I think that if you're transporting a film setting to the United States, then
what we should be mad about is Nipplegate, okay? Because if you look back on some of the original composites and stuff, that whole like suit that she's wearing, that's like actually like digitally, like they digitally composited on some early designs. So like the early design, it was just like the nude shell with like without nipples, right? Which is what Nature like is kind of like. They do put nipples on it, but they don't have color. Like it's like a Barbie doll type thing, It's like where there's no color on the nipples in the original one.
Yeah, interesting.
They're just little
makes
bumps.
sense
to see
American actors.
See like how like if that
I think that if you're transporting a film setting to the United States, then it makes sense to
right there, right? Because it's far away, you can't see like that she's wearing a suit. That's how the stealth suit should have looked.
Yes.
Instead, it's like clearly skin toned instead of just like see through.
Yeah, it clearly cuts off at the neck, yeah.
To cast American actors in the principal roles. And when you consider that the US is 64% non-Hispanic white and only 5% Asian, that means that you're going to be casting white people as anime characters. And you'll probably end up casting
Except
more black
they didn't.
and Hispanic actors.
They didn't. Literally, the only white people are in the movie are people who have been white in the fucking anime and in the movie. They curd washed and black washed it.
Head of Japanese ones as well. That's just how the demographics in the US break down.
It's
of course,
literally more diverse than the anime.
mean that 1 in 20 blockbuster movies have Asian leads, and we're not even close to that, but I don't think it's right to blame an individual movie for a shitty trend.
But that argument only makes sense if your movie is set in the United States. If your movie is set in, say, Japan, a country whose genetic makeup is almost 100% Japanese, then it would be a little weird.
Japan, did you watch the movie, dude?
Weird for your lead, who is supposed to be a native citizen of Japan, to be white. Oh. Whoops.
Ghost in the Shell as a property cannot be taken.
First of all, it's the only movie that actually says that fucking Motoko Kusanagi is Japanese. It's the only one to actually say she is Japanese. And the other one, she's a Japanese resident, member of Japanese nation, but they never talk about her ethnicity being like, oh, as a Japanese child or anything like that. It's never talked about like that.
Is that weren't they refugees as well?
Yeah, well, that's in this. She's a refugee. That refugee shit was added for this movie.
Yeah,
the backstory citing that she was a refugee who was drowned, and then her body was taken and experimented on. And
that's
shit.
right.
Where do you think that rhetoric was coming from? What was going on in the world with refugees? That's still going on to this day. Like, this movie is so fucking analyzed at a surface fucking level, and I partially blame Hollywood for it because they can't do anything deep, and it was really suits and marketing that dumbed down a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. I want experimental movies. I want people to fund experimental movies. Give me something different.
Like, honestly, there's a lot of parts of the live action I like better than 95, because 95 is quite boring.
Yeah, honestly, I kind of agree. The season, like the show, is much better.
Yeah, and even then, there's certain episodes that do suck of the show, but then there's other episodes that are so fucking good.
Brilliant, yeah.
And the series' setting is inextricably tied to Japan's history and uses that as a basis for speculation on its future. The existence of Section 9 really...
Bro, that's literally Hong Kong. It's that you were showing. There was Chinese kanji there, bro.
Only
it's
makes
literally
sense
in Hong Kong.
Entrenched bureaucracy of the Japanese Diet, and many of the series' characters have their roots in Japan's unique armed forces, the Self-Defense Force, which is not allowed to operate outside of Japan under a treaty with America. To move the film to America, you would need to throw out all of Masamune Shirai's...
It's not in America.
Dude, literally is just making a thing for content. He didn't look at the source material. He's showing the scene from the original movie where it shows that she's literally like a product. Look, see where she's seeing the mannequin of herself? Walter M.A. Is that clearly a fucking Western company? Look, there's a black mannequin right there too. It's almost like they put it in the original movie.
world building in regards to geopolitics, economics, and 2 nuclear world wars that build on the legacy of the last Great War.
Okay,
you would
first
essentially
of all,
need
no. The movie itself doesn't say that there's a world war at all.
No.
Like the World War canon and stuff is loosely implied in one episode of Standalone Complex, and it's when they go to the UK for some reason. No,
to start from scratch.
I already feel
at which
better.
Point, why take the license at all?
This is the best
so
part.
Ghost
That's
in the
the
Shell
best part.
had to be set in Tokyo,
Episode
but it
2.
also had to star Scarlett.
You could not do the Tachikomas in a live action.
You see how they're already doing effects on it. It's because she was in a green suit this whole time.
Yeah.
So if it looked more like this instead of the clear edges that they had to define, and it was just looked like it was like her under cyborg shell that like was completely flush with her neckline, it would have looked so much better. And you can see there's totally like those uncolored nipples going on here, and then suddenly when the suit unblurs, they're gone, because clearly there was a nipple gate that happened here, as they decided that the nipples were too much and they took them off, and then they made it PG-13 instead of R like it should have been. That's what we should be mad about. Nipple gate.
Johansson. I get that. The way that Hollywood currently works, you can't justify making a movie of this scope without a big lead at the helm.
Okay.
That's not...
The original movie was in Japan, but the remake was in Hong Kong.
But the Section 9 operates inside Hong Kong.
Yes, but I'm reading it here.
Okay, so the original movie is not Hong Kong. It is Japan.
Newport City in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just the remake is Hong Kong.
I believe so. I will double check. But I believe that that's
I
the case.
I thought in Standalone Complex they brought them over from the Hong Kong police.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And there are no Asian actresses who do action movies and have anywhere near the same name cachet as ScarJo. I mean, everybody really wants Rinko Kikuchi to be a big star, but until we're calling her Ringcooch, which maybe I should rethink that, it's not.
Yeah, that was awful. Also, I completely agree with this. Give her more action roles. She's great. The girl from Pacific Rim. Excellent.
Not going to happen.
And there's this whole other infinitely circular argument about whether or not that's because Hollywood never gives those actresses a chance in the first place, but I'm not going to get into that here. I'm equipped to handle
it's definitely Hong Kong.
I understand the argument for
in 1995
why this movie needed
as well. So look, there's literal just articles on it. Recreating Ghost in the Shell in Hong Kong? Does this just mean maybe this is just comparing it how it looks like Hong Kong?
Yes.
Does not define a chosen set, but is termed the street scenes and atmosphere. It's obvious Hong Kong is the model. So it's based on the feeling of Hong Kong, not based in an actual city itself.
Okay.
So because at the time Hong Kong in the 90s was like just this like already they had that like futurescape.
It was very cyberpunky.
Yeah, so that's what, so it's modeled after Hong Kong, but it's not necessarily Hong Kong.
Yes, it does not say anything about cities in the wiki. Cool. Okay, great. But it's definitely Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's a fictional city based on Hong Kong, not Japan.
And even if stupid argument, because again, going back to what you said before about the characters, they are Japanese. They literally the cast is perfect. So
yeah.
To have a star of ScarJo's stature in order to
Here's
sell
a whole video made by somebody that's just comparisons.
But I can see very few scenarios in which that wouldn't negatively impact my personal suspension of disbelief while watching the film.
Going into it, the only scenario that I could think of that even kind of worked, that Motoko Kusanagi chose to have a white cyber body as a fashion statement, I guess, only raised more uncomfortable.
What are you talking about?
Fortunately, the
Did
movie
you
finds
watch
an
the
alternate
movie?
solution to that casting issue,
She
one that
doesn't
actually
pick it as
does
a
make sense
fashion
within the
choice, bro.
I think he's just implying that that's why. I don't think that's what he said.
Dude did not watch the
personal
movie.
Suspension of disbelief while watching the film.
Going into it, the only scenario that I could think of that even kind of worked, that Motoko Kusanagi chose to have a white cyber body as a fashion statement, I guess, only raised more.
How would that be a thing? On what like that she chose to be white in the movie, and so this scenario I made up, where even the only thing I could make sense of why to make her white is that she chose to be white.
Yeah,
bro, the movie is about how they made her white. An American company came to Hong Kong, did experimental technology on fucking Japanese refugees.
Yeah.
Uncomfortable implications. Fortunately, the movie finds an alternate solution to that casting issue, one that actually does make sense within the film's universe. Unfortunately, the plot that justifies that solution turns this movie into a total betrayal of everything the original film stood for. One of the really interesting things about the anime Ghost in the Shell, which makes it stand out from other sci-fi action movies, is that the major, Motoko Kusanagi, is not special, at least not externally. Her exterior appearance is a mass-production cyborg shell that can be found all over the place in Tokyo, even in storefronts as a mannequin. Full-body cyborgs aren't especially common in this world, but they're normalized to at least the same degree as people in wheelchairs or the blind. And at the point that the story begins...
What else is... What do you think was normalized that Ghost in the Shell live action was commenting on? A specific normalized thing. Let's think about it. She's not alien to a certain type of people. I wonder how on the nose the theme of her identity being stolen could be and still have people completely miss it. Here's the thing, is that these people aren't actually film analysts. They have just watched video essays on the original movie itself, right?
Mm.
So they got their opinions from other people who watched the movie about herself, about the, and then the only thing that's existed on the live action one has been people crying about it. And so there's no actual film analyst to point out that this is what the film is about. And since these people have no opinions of or anything that they haven't gotten from somebody else, they can't figure that out.
You might have nailed it, honestly. You might have nailed it.
Humanity has already accepted the idea of a mind totally decoupled from the body, a ghost separate from its shell. And the film raises an important related question. Where does that leave AI in the spectrum between robot and humanity? It also creates an interesting conundrum for Kusanagi.
It's almost like they're
really
different
be sure
stories.
that she's a human in the first place? We see in the film that memories can easily be rewritten, so maybe she was built as an android and implanted with false memories of a human life. Seeing identical mass production copies of herself wandering around Tokyo only exacerbates that concern. This is what makes the Major an interesting, if not necessarily relatable, character. The nature of her existence, both in and out of the context of the world around her, raises all these different philosophical questions.
The theme you are looking for is questions about identity. Ghost in the Shell is about questioning your identity. She questions her own identity. There's a whole dive sequence where she says she only feels human when she's in the water because she's weightless, because her body is so heavy. She can feel the weight of her body every day, reminding her that she's not human. And this is something that helps destroy her. Now, in the new one, she now has to go through every day knowing that her original body was stolen from her and this identity was erased. A sequel to Ghost in the Shell could all be about her recovering the pieces of her past. And then she actually finds out who she is, and learns more about the refugees and who caused that crisis, and I think they say that Honka Robotics even killed the refugees in the movie. I'm just not positive.
As technology advances. That's not the case with this new movie. They throw out much of what makes the Major interesting in favor of trying to make her more conventionally rounded and appealing to a contemporary audience. And to be fair, this character is a lot easier to relate to on an emotional level, owing in no small part, I'll admit, to Scarlett Johansson's brilliant performance. But she's not.
It's
really
because
the
she's
Major.
not a cartoon character that she's more relatable.
In name only for most of the movie. The movie focuses on the origin of the Major, here named Mira Killian. After an accident on a refugee boat, her mind was salvaged by Hanka Robotics and put into a robotic body, making her the world's first full-body cyborg. She's unique, special, and that makes her feel incredibly lonely, which I guess is as good a basis as any for...
That's not actually what they say. It was the first cerebral salvage where they were able to take a brain out of a dead body.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily say full-body cyborgs don't exist. It's strongly implied, like most things in Ghost in the Shell. It's strongly implied and not flat out said.
It's not really Motoko Kusanagi.
And
yes,
this guy is proving why American films have to spell it out with boring exposition. Because if you make something that is actually good...
They literally say your name is Motoko Kusanagi. And also, Motoko Kusanagi is not even important. The Major doesn't even go by the name Motoko. Only Bato will sometimes yell that name.
Yes.
When she's in dire trouble and stuff. And then that complicates the relationship where he loves her, but she has no attachment to human emotions because she's half AI now because she merged with the Puppet Master. And also she likes Beaver. Which is she's shown multiple times that she is gay.
Also obligated to serve in the government's public security section 9 because the experiment that saved her life was part of a weapons program. She's not sure if she's even human or not, as she conveys in some
this is a conflict in the anime as well. Her body is literally owned.
Yes.
In the anime, she's owned by fucking corporations and given to the secret police. This is a whole interconflict.
Painfully ham-fisted dialogue, and as she later finds out, her entire history was a lie. She was actually a teenage runaway picked up off the streets by Hanka Robotics, who are even more evil than it originally appeared they were, and turned into a cyborg against her will. Her original name, it turns out, was Motoko Kusanagi. She was originally Japanese, and the villains stole her identity, ethnicity included, from her. That's kind of interesting. It's about the most interesting thing you can possibly do with casting Scarlett Johansson in this role. You could use that as a strong metaphor for colonialism or even Hollywood casting itself. There are a few problems with that, though. Firstly, the film just isn't smart enough to do anything with that idea. Instead of exploring the ramifications,
The irony. This guy would say that Barbie was feminist drivel. That's what this guy would say.
Okay, go to his channel, see if there is stuff.
I fucking will.
Just used as an excuse to cast ScarJo and still call the character Motoko Kusanagi.
That's
In
the
fact, it
point of
almost
the
seems like
movie.
it was
Is not that she wasn't Asian; it's that she didn't have to be.
Yes. Also, they never called her Motoko Kusanagi. Not like they said that her name is, but she does not adopt that identity.
Yeah, she
now
says,
knows
"My
where
name
she
is
comes
Major."
from. Yeah.
It ends with her identifying as Major. That she
Yeah.
is a completely new identity. She doesn't even accept her old identity.
But she's now found closure with the fact that her identity was stolen from her, which solidifies her belief that she is now what she is, which is Major. That's like the entire conclusion of the movie.
First place because of the complaints. Because Bato is still white and still named Bato, and there's no similar justification for him.
The bigger problem is that within the narrative, this ends up framing Motoko's transformation into a full-body cyborg as an inherently bad thing. Rather than being part of who she is, her cyberization becomes the ultimate violation of her privacy
Well, also,
and bodily
like
autonomy.
another
by an
thing is
outside
like he
corporate
could have
entity.
been in the anime, right? Like if we want to go by his name or something like that, he could have been like of like moderate like Japanese descent. You know, you could have a surname if you're in America. You know, we don't know Bato's name at all. We only know Bato. We don't know if that's a code name or anything.
It is just anime, this channel.
Okay.
Which that
Extrapolating
makes
from that,
sense.
the underlying message of the movie seems to be that transhumanism is something that threatens our humanity rather than something that could possibly enhance it. That there should be a limit on how much we change ourselves using technology. The original Ghost in the Shell would never have made that kind of statement, and not just...
Oh my god.
Because Masamune Shirow seems to be genuinely excited by the possibilities of the...
Like, the idea of like how much of you can you replace before you're no longer you is half of most of the theme of this entire show. That's one of the running themes. It's like all these, there's people who don't want to modify themselves because they think that it will take from their humanity. Like this is literally a running theme and conflict within the show. What the fuck are you talking about?
Technology that he's dreamed up. Ghost in the Shell doesn't give many definitive answers in general. It prefers to pose a question and let you reach your own conclusion, although admittedly those questions can be pretty leading. The original would never suggest that there's a simple answer to the big questions that it poses, especially not one as blisteringly stupid as it's not our memories that define us, but our actions, which more than 30 different people parrot at the camera over the course of the movie, and which only raises more questions.
Check out this, what I found.
Are you sending it to me?
Yeah, no, I'm opening it. So this is early concept designs for costumes by Weta. Look, Ishikawa and Toga, these like aren't like, you know, they look similar to who they eventually went with on the cast. But this guy was apparently always black. Ishikawa is the one who also gets race swapped. So like early on, you can see like this doesn't look like ScarJo, right? So like early on in the concept art, they already had this diversification of cast where some reason the only person who actually is white, these two, you know, which this one can be justified, but like already is she not standing out from the rest of the cast
as being strange?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. It's almost like that was written into the script by design.
Yeah, almost like that was the point. Crazy, right? And then all these idiots are like, she's whitewashed. It's whitewashing, instead of saying the fucking point. Fools.
Moment. And I will ask those questions in a high-pitched voice because there's not enough Tachikoma in either movie, and I need to make up for that. For starters, considering that
I disagree. The Tachikomas have been used perfectly, and they should not be overused.
Oh, whoa! I was looking away. Can we go back? We're insulting Tachikomas now.
No, he wants more, and I said I disagree.
Questions if you think about it for even a moment. And I will ask those questions in a high-pitched voice because there's not enough Tachikoma in either movie, and I need to make up for that. For starters, considering that everything we perceive is processed and stored in our short-term memory, and we don't quite experience anything in real time.
Yes, they could have put Tachikomas in the movie. Sure, they could have done that.
It would have been awful.
Yes.
It would have been so... It would have broken the immersion completely. It was not that kind of movie.
Make a meaningful distinction between...
Hang on. What about the Bato bathroom scene, right? The trans scene, do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
Our actions and the memories of them. And for that matter, aren't our actions in the present inextricably tied to our memories? The mind makes decisions by processing present stimuli in the context of past information, right? So aren't our memories and the way that we interpret them the cause of every action that we take in the present? That being the case, couldn't our actions be influenced by false memories? Not even the ones that are implanted by an outside source, but what about the memories that we alter by the very process of remembering them? Or dreams that we misremember as fact? Science suggests that our brains and the information contained within them are the sum total of who we are. So it stands to reason that changing or suppressing that information...
This is awful.
Okay, I'll show this in like two little parts because there is a scene kind of between them. Right? Check this out. Ready? Right. Not even caring that there's a woman peeing next to him, just walking up nonchalantly.
Like, he could have at least tried to do slightly different voices like they do in the actual show.
Who?
The guy, this idiot trying to fucking mimic the Tachikomas.
Oh, I wasn't listening because I was pulling this up. But at the same time...
I literally went back because you said I wasn't listening. I'm not going back again.
But no, we already heard that they weren't used enough. I didn't hear him trying to do the Tachikoma impressions. Now, like, to juxtapose this whole, like, minor trans scene that, like, nobody has ever paid attention to. Like, it's when she's being handcuffed to a stripper pole, you know? Like, there's a lot of deep implication here that this, like, scumbag club owner is, like, abusing and using her body for his own enjoyment. Wow, crazy. Deep. Right, so he was looking over at her, right? And it's like, oh, now he's like having a problem with this woman next to him. And he's looking back like, wait, what was that, huh? But no.
Guns.
Yeah.
It was to make sure the coast was clear so the Curtis girl could give him a gun. Wow, crazy. Such a small thing to put in there is that he goes pee next to a woman. Nobody gave a fuck, right? 2017, way before trans panic existed, and even this movie was ahead of the curve with that one.
Yeah. Staying on trend for Ghost in the Shell. Ahead of the curve.
Would at least partially change who a person is. We even saw that with the garbage man, who was presumably not a killer before Kuze implanted false memories within his brain.
Actually, let's take a minute or three to talk about the movie's erstwhile villain, Kuze.
Fans of Ghost in the Shell standalone complex will recognize that as the last name of Hideo Kuze, a JSDF soldier and full-body cyborg who attempts to assassinate Japan's prime minister as part of the individual
spoilers
that form the main arc of the second gig. Which may be a little confusing since this movie is clearly doing the Puppet Master story from the original movie.
No, it's
right?
not.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
It's Hollywood, so everything needs to be connected to everything else in the story.
Where is Kuze in this movie claiming that he was created as an AI and wasn't having an original identity or body? Where does that happen in the movie?
It was a failed attempt to make what Major is. That's all.
The villain be a random
and a failed attempt by the corporate standards, and
but
therefore
the Puppet Master is a failed experiment as well.
Yes,
but he doesn't have an original body.
Exactly.
Well, it's actually not a. It just has a male voice, even though it has a female shell with titties.
Yes.
Look at those honkers on the Puppet Master.
The movie still follows the story of Section 9 investigating a hacker who is using hacked androids and even hacked cybernetic humans.
Wait,
to
you
go
mean
on a
to
crime
tell me
spree.
the Ghost
but now,
in the Shell
instead of a
story
rogue AI,
is about
the hacker
named Major going after another hacker from her crime division that specializes in cybercrime and hacking? No.
But this is
That's
just a
why it's
stupid
clearly
movie.
supposed to be the Puppet Master, because it's a hacker.
Toko's predecessor enacting a campaign of revenge against the people who created them, which I had figured out
Nope.
from Cutter's ridiculously
Nope,
evil
not
little speech at the
revenge,
beginning of the film,
self-defense.
and the fact that all of the targets were directly linked to the same company that built Motoko, not to mention that they more or less gave it away in the trailer. But this movie being predictable isn't the big problem here.
They did
the
not
problem
give
is that
away.
They took two
They did
really
not give away
interesting
that his
characters,
goal
the
is to
puppet
preserve himself because Hanka Robotics are trying to destroy him.
Mm-hmm.
They do not give away the case for it being self-defense in the trailer. No. Lie. Miscorrection.
Master and Hideo Kuze and fuse them into one boring, nonsensical mess.
Bro,
it
he's
makes
the
sense that a
best
sentient
character.
AI would be.
What are you talking about? Boring, nonsensical mess.
Insanely good at hacking. It is a computer program, after all, many times smarter than a normal human. But a broken prototype cyborg, even with the explanation that Kuze has built a neural network to enhance his processing power, I don't really buy it. Maybe my having seen the original film is just ruining this for me, but everything that Kuze does seems like it should be beyond the reach of a normal human hacker. That's what makes the Puppet Master so dangerous in the original film. By ditching the idea of an AI as the villain and making Motoko's cyber prosthesis special, the remake all but abandons the underlying themes of the original, the question of what it is that makes us human and how our species can evolve. It gets even worse as the film wraps up, though. After fighting a think tank in a scene taken more or less directly from the original film, only without all of the symbolic destruction of the environment around them, Motoko and Kuze lie, broken and waiting for death in the middle of the street. Kuze asks Motoko to merge her mind into his neural network, and she rejects the offer because she'd rather die than lose her individuality, which is really about as far from the nuanced ending of the original film as you can possibly get.
Wow,
in fact,
crazy.
It's almost a
like
straight-up middle
endings are
finger
always
to anyone
different.
who was hoping that the film might respect its source material.
It
The
did.
ending of the original movie, where Motoko
It very much did.
merges her mind with the AI.
The creator
to create a
of the
being
source material said that it literally could not be better.
in order to save her life is smart and thought-provoking, but it makes writing a sequel with the same star-studded cast difficult, to say the
maybe
least.
don't
Ghost
end
in the
it with a fully sexual, mature female taking a child's body.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the original, it's to imply like Bato is almost like a father figure to her. Right? And more like a guardian, a protector, like how an adult should be, right? And like it questions like if his love and attachment to her is even sexual at all.
Yes.
And
Michelle,
America
innocent Santa,
maybe not going to send the right message if we put her in a child body, huh?
No.
change its focus to a new protagonist, and American audiences are way too dumb to follow something like that. So the studio.
Brother, you are the dumb American you are talking about.
He's talking about Ghost in the Shell 2 being about Bato instead of Motoko. By the way, I don't think Ghost in the Shell 2 is very good.
Solution is to dumb everything down and change the ending to something more open-ended and philosophically meaningless. And of course, when you change the ending of something, you have to change the whole structure to make that work. So Ghost in the Shell ends up falling back to the old go-to approach for Hollywood adaptations of strange, interesting foreign films, awkwardly cram the source material into a blockbuster formula that seems kind of similar to it. The most hilarious example of this is Dragon Ball Evolution, which apparently was put into production after the studio read 3 words of the synopsis and said, yeah, we can turn this into
Ghost in the Shell was the first good anime adaptation.
Yes.
And as far as I know, probably the only Alita Battle Angel's okay.
How dare you? That movie's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. It's not
great.
like on the level of Ghost in the Shell, though. It's a fun, it's a fun action
it's great.
movie.
You
know, the climbing up on the tower, it's so stupid when they climb up on the tower and the saws come down. Like, okay, and then the guy gets like sliced to pieces, and then she's like holding on, and he falls, and it's in slow motion with her reaching out. So fucking stupid. They also like invent a sport that's like wall ball or something.
Yeah,
like that's such a great scene.
The movie's great. I love it. I reckon it's fantastic. I reckon it should have gotten a sequel, but people didn't watch it. So
well,
I think
Ghost in the Shell.
I think the weird anime eyes scared people away.
Well, that's was there a solution to whitewashing, I think.
Now this one's specifically about Standalone Complex.
Uh,
That's a good start.
It propagates without instruction or leadership, with maintained by a mind as a social.
Hang on, I just found
Beautiful,
something.
beautiful.
I just found something. I found some promotional stuff. Okay. This was just I found this on the recommendation. So this is like you have to submit this kind of shit to award shows to qualify and stuff. You need like behind the scenes stuff. So that's why they shoot a lot of this stuff. So it's like, here's the questions. Apparently it's a like long interview according to this.
All right, well, I'll ask, do we continue with the Ghost in the Shell
Hang on.
stuff, or do we move on? I'm not asking you.
In Ghost in the Shell. I play Ladria, who's part of the Section 9 group who are managed by Major. And she's the only other girl in that crew, so she's got to hold her own. So she's pretty tough. But also, we're like a big gang and family, and in the end, that's kind of worked its way into the film. So she's got a good sense of humor, despite being, you know, tough when it comes down to it.
Very hard to say when you have two, like, literally 2 dialogue scenes in the movie and you're such a minor character, to have all this background, to have your character having a sense of humor and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's like more challenging to get a character for somebody who's so like short and small for the movie.
But
Yeah.
we'll shoot you and ask questions later. She's that kind of girl.
Yep, that definitely is implied by legit, like how she's depicted in the movie.
Ladria doesn't exist in any of the previous Ghost in the Shell films, franchises, or anything. So it's cool. We get to make her up from scratch, which is amazing. But what's great is that knowing the world of the films and the comics and everything kind of helps you get into the frame of it, because it's a really interesting and detailed kind of whole world that they've created. And the film is now part of that, which is great. Ghost in the Shell is set in a world where cyborgs and humans are almost indistinguishable, and people can kind of update themselves.
What was that? Cyberization was normalized? That guy was wrong about it not being normal?
With robotics. So, you know, you could get a little chip put in your brain and learn a new language, you know, if you've got the money.
Fun fact, in the 95 version, it still is weird for Major to have a fully cyborg body. It's not really a thing. In fact, even in the anime, they're like, whoa, he's got a full cyborg body. Like some,
yeah,
will enhance themselves. It's almost like plastic surgery gone crazy. And because of that,
it quite literally is transhumanism.
It's literally the theme.
Yeah,
cyborgs working alongside people constantly.
Major is
It's
post-human.
very hard to distinguish the two, and that's where the name comes from, because the ghost is like the human soul, and that is the only thing that kind of distinguishes what it means to be human and what it means to be completely artificial. And the interesting thing about Major is that she is right somewhere in the middle and raising that question. And it's quite a cool world because it's sci-fi, but there's something about it that makes you think this could be possible in the next few years, and it raises questions that are interesting for us now. Working with Scarlett's great because with a character who's so kind of almost not human, she manages to create something really subtle and touching with just like the tiniest of looks. And it's great, you know, I'll sneak around the back and sort of watch the playback just to see what's going on, because it just looks really cool. And it's very,
'cause I'm doing nothing.
It's great to learn from, to watch an actor do so little and yet convey so much, which is kind of exactly how Major would be.
Okay, I made the executive
90
decision.
views. Only comment. I thought Ladrea was a great addition to the Section 9 team. Based, I'm going to like that comment from 6 years ago. Person logs onto YouTube. Somebody liked my comment on what now?
I moved on. I think what we'll do is we'll revisit.
I mean,
some videos.
Anytime you're having somebody say dumb shit about culture wars regarding the Ghost in the Shell live action.
Mm-hmm. But we'll keep moving.
Well,
if we
also
have time, maybe we'll come back.
that woman was literally in Yemen until the age of 10.
Wow.
So she's a refugee in a movie that's like portraying a world that's
Damn.
anti-refugee.
That's fucking crazy.
She's of Kurdish and Polish descent, originally born in Turkey, and then was like mainly raised in Yemen until the age of 10.
It's pretty nuts.
Whitewashing.
Yeah, whitewashing. Fucking hell. People, yeah, that movie is so slept on.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?